Okay, our next project is also about local farming, but the issue is very different. Zach Bogosian is going to give us the presentation. Zach.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Zach Bogosian, and I'm here representing a group of 14 students who are in the Sustainability Management here at Columbia and the Earth Institute. And this is our final capstone brief for our client, New Haven Farms, and Pathways to Growth. So a quick look at our agenda. We'll talk a little bit about our client, New Haven Farms, the objective of our project, our analysis and recommendations, and then next steps for New Haven Farms. So jumping right in, there's a problem. And in New Haven, Connecticut, 40% of residents have limited access to fresh vegetables. In low-income neighborhoods, there's a 43% obesity rate versus 16% in higher income areas. And the mortality rate from diabetes is thus 2 times higher in these low-income areas. So there's a link between the access to healthy foods and metabolic disease. So our client, New Haven Farms, is working to change this through their Farm-Based Wellness Program. And to serve their mission of health and community development through urban agriculture, the wellness program delivers fresh vegetables and education in the summer months. Doctors prescribe the wellness program to low-income patients at risk of diabetes. And through this program, participants get fresh vegetables at no cost and learn how to live a healthier life through their education programs in nutrition, cooking, and farming seminars. New Haven Farms is under new leadership that wants to take the organization from a small startup to a more involved community leader, and they asked us to identify ways for them to do that. So to serve their mission, we've interpreted this as maximizing the health impacts, and there are 3 paths to growth under this objective. So the first is food production, and that's you can grow that essentially by expanding to new sites or introducing new technologies and farming methods. Second is education. You can increase the number, serve more people, or increase the quality of the education delivered to each person. And there's the overarching need for financial sustainability and organizational systems. And so the colors will essentially show where we are throughout the presentation, so keep those in mind. So there are 2 opportunities to increase food production, and that's through new sites and introducing new technologies and farming methods. And our near-term recommendation is that New Haven Farms does not pursue new sites due to cost and time and access limitations. So this part of the presentation will focus solely on the new technology and new methods. Through extensive interviewing, secondary research, and expert consultation, along with our knowledge of New Haven Farms sites and existing practice, we've identified 4 methods that would help New Haven Farms to grow production. And those for our outdoor vertical hydroponic system, a high tunnel, indoor vertical microgreens, and a hydroponic greenhouse. And all offer efficiency gains in some way, shape, or form. And we've outlined those characteristics here. So you can increase your resource efficiency in soil and water use. You can increase your space efficiency by maximizing the land area and the footprint, perhaps going vertical. And you can make time efficiency gains through extending the growing season beyond just the summer months when they currently grow now. And so in comparing each method against the current conventional operations and against one another, there were 3 considerations that our team made for growth and feasibility. One was yield, so looking at the pounds per square foot New Haven Farms could grow. Another was production costs, so the amount of money it would take to grow 1 pound of vegetables. And the third is capital investment, so it's the dollars invested per square foot in developing these new methods. So as you can see, even simplified, there are many trade-offs to consider. And when determining the ideal method, system size, and product mix, it's simply too complex to eyeball. So our team built an optimization model to create a hybrid solution that employed many of these new farming methods. And the goal of this model is to find an optimal solution that would maximize production and allocate land by both growth method and by crop mix. And so built into the model are inputs as described on the last slide. So those are crop yields, capital investment, and production costs. And the model is subject to constraints, as you can see on the right here, that affect the whole system. So there are capital constraints, how much you can invest, crop types, they deliver a certain type of crop mix to their clients, and square footage, so general size. And so essentially what this model is designed to do is optimize and tell New Haven Farms what to grow and how to grow it. So our team looked at New Haven Farms' financials and determined that they could spend $60,000 to improve farming operations. And we set the model to incorporate a $60,000 max capital investment. And so under the current state, 100% of the square footage is allocated to conventional soil-based farming. And under the optimized state, 83% of that square footage remains unchanged. 17% of the square footage would now use new unconventional farming methods, including a space allocated for a high tunnel and a greenhouse for vertical microgreens and indoor hydroponic systems. So there are many efficiency gains projected under the optimal model. The first is, of course, total pounds produced. And so that doubles under the optimized model. And again, consider that only 17% of the square footage was changed to unconventional farming methods. A second efficiency gain is average yield per square foot, which also doubled on New Haven Farms' limited footprint. And a third is looking at the production cost. And that was actually reduced by 44 cents a pound of vegetables produced. So this model will also be a tool for New Haven Farms to use and scenario plan moving forward if they want to optimize for a different cost, different staffing requirements, and different pounds per vegetables produced. Excuse me. So moving on to education, we're looking at how to maximize the health impact through education, and we've outlined two paths here. One is increasing the number of people that go through New Haven Farms educational programs, and the other is to improve the quality of the education that's offered to each individual. And so in exploring expansion opportunities in education, the New Haven Farms leadership is exploring many possibilities. So what we've done is created a strategic framework that outlines growth opportunities, supported with case studies and specific resources informed by local and industry best practice. So what we've done is scenario planned using examples and generated a set of resources for New Haven Farms to carry forward across these four categories. So improving the number of people, New Haven Farms could expand to new facilities. So an example of this is creating a collaboration with Yale to use their kitchen facilities for their nutrition classes. An example of a new partnership would be to expand the youth client base by bringing students from Common Ground High School through New Haven Farms program to receive education and farming experience. Switching to improving the quality of the education per person, New Haven Farms could formalize certifications and licenses for their nutritionists that they have on staff. And expanding their materials to improve the quality of the education, they could develop a printed cookbook or a nutrition guide that the clients could take home and extend their education beyond just the farms. In similar fashion, we've created a structured framework for how New Haven Farms should scenario plan for growing financial and organizational systems, and there's a need to formalize across these three categories here: financial sustainability, workforce, and operational metrics. So again, we've outlined best practices and opportunities for New Haven Farms and scenario planned across four categories. Looking at grants and donations, an example of one of the resources we've provided for New Haven Farms is a USDA grant that promotes local food production. New Haven Farms could also pursue corporate sponsorships with companies like Albertsons, which is a local food chain, who might want to sponsor, pay to sponsor a site and get that advertising revenue for New Haven Farms. New Haven Farms could also generate revenue by expanding their CSA program and selling some of the extra pounds of produce that the optimization model would help them to grow. And a fourth bucket there would be to look at health insurance and identify how New Haven Farms could qualify for Medicare reimbursements for their nutritional education. So we've identified a framework for how to think about staffing and workforce planning. So under the current state, top left here, New Haven Farms has 2 full-time employees and 1 part-time nutrition educator. And a weakness in this system is that the farm lead manages the volunteers as well as the farms, and that creates a trade-off between education or people. How does she allocate her time? So in a growth scenario on the right-hand side, which is informed by best practice, a new volunteer lead manages the volunteers and the wellness program participants so that the core competencies are served appropriately under the New Haven Farms model. And so for each level of staffing, we recommend that New Haven Farm formalizes each set of roles and responsibilities so that it can maintain its organizational knowledge base through training and documentation. With only 2 full-time staff members, should one of them leave, a lot of the operational standards and processes would be lost and the organization would be left high and dry. And this is so that they can make sure they have the people with the right skills at the right place at the right time, with the overall goal that stabilization and reduced turnover rate will expand growth opportunities for the organization. And finally, an essential recommendation is that New Haven Farms continues to build operational metrics across 3 main areas. The first is farming, so tracking their product mix, the market pricing, and the health value of the products that they grow on the farm sites are examples of this. And they're already doing some, but our recommendation is that they expand those. Education, they currently track attendance and participation, and we want New Haven Farms to extend that so that they can essentially build out a volunteer corps over a longer period of time. And they could expand health and wellness metrics, looking at metabolic risk factors and dietary intake, again, over a longer time horizon. So we've identified best practices in industry and stressed that by baselining core business metrics and using them to set goals and measuring performance can inform scenario planning moving forward for New Haven in the future. So we've delivered proposals and resources to the New Haven Farms board and leadership, and next steps for them are to determine their strategic priorities and develop a roadmap for the future of New Haven Farms, which no doubt will continue to impact the health of the New Haven community. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Zach, please?
I have a question about financing. The $60,000, was that a limit that they set? Because you had a tremendous improvement from that, and also overall funding for the organization.
Sure, yeah. So the organization is generally funded by grants and donations. And so that $60,000 limit was looking at their financial state, and they have some cash to invest right now, so it was taking a chunk of that and allocating it. And the second piece of that is that $60,000 investment amount was comparable to a lot of the grants that New Haven Farms might be applying to. So if they didn't take it out of their cash on hand, they could use a grant to put forth those efforts, yeah.
Other questions? Yes, on the light.
Thanks. You talked a little bit about workforce planning and referred to best practices. I was wondering what else did you study to determine those?
Sure. So there's a range of different organizations that we studied. Some were organizations that New Haven Farms leadership stated directly as organizations they'd like to model themselves after who are at larger growth stages. We also looked at, in different educational papers, organizations that had been successful serving community through urban agriculture programs and identified some of their organizational structures. And we looked at different organizations just by basic research as well. So those three buckets. So yeah.
Okay, last question.
So I have a question about the optimization model. Did it take into consideration just the capital cost of those new technologies, or potential training that would need to be done, or crop failure at the start outcome?
Sure. So the baseline that we used was New Haven Farms' current output, and so we used that to project different failure rates or growth rates essentially. And then what we did include as well, alongside, we did include a labor cost, I'll say cost, but it's actually measured in terms of number of hours required. So New Haven Farms could fill those hours by a paid staff member, but they could also train a volunteer to take on those hours. So that's what's built in there.
Okay, thank you very much.